Ever get that feeling? You know, like when you're trying to have a conversation with a chatbot and it just seems totally clueless.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're explaining something important and it's hitting you back with these robotic, canned responses.
Well,
We've all been there, right?
totally. It's like talking to a wall sometimes.
But then on the flip side, you fire up Google Translate to decode an entire article in another language, and it's shockingly good. It makes you wonder how they pull it off.
I know, right? It's come a long way.
Well, get this. In this deep dive, we're tackling the mind-blowing tech that's quietly changing how we interact with machines, natural language processing, or NLP for short.
Definitely a game changer.
And we're going deep on a paper that completely shook up the field. Attention is all you need.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
It's a classic. This paper's a big deal. Like, it really shifted the whole playing field.
Yeah, it's like they dropped this knowledge bomb and everyone else was like, game on.
Exactly.
But before we get into why this paper is legendary, we need to rewind a bit and understand the puzzle it was trying to solve.
Okay, so back to basics.
So picture this. It's pre-2017, and you're trying to get a computer to understand a sentence. The models back then, things like RNNs.
RNNs, right?
RNN stands for Recurrent Neural Network, by the way. A mouthful. I know.
Yeah, a bit of a tongue twister.
They were very linear in how they thought. They processed one word at a time in a very strict order, which caused a few issues.
Yeah, that's not how language really works, is it?
Right. Imagine trying to understand a story, but you can only read one word at a time, and you have to remember every single word that came before it to make sense of what you're reading right now. Exhausting, right?
Totally inefficient. Our brains don't work like that for a reason.
And not very efficient for computers either.
Exactly. RNNs would really struggle with long sentences because the further they got, the harder it became to hang on to the memory of those early words. In tech jargon, they call this the vanishing gradient problem. Plus, all that sequential processing was a real resource hog when it came to computing power.
So RNNs were having a tough time keeping up with the nuances and complexities of actual human language.
They had their limitations for sure.
And that's where our star of the show struts in the transformer. This paper completely disrupted the status quo by asking, what if, instead of this word-by-word approach, we taught computers to process the entire sentence at once?
Wow, talk about a paradigm shift.
And the secret sauce, the key to this revolutionary approach, it's all about attention.
This is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
The paper introduces this concept called scaled dot product attention, which might sound a bit intimidating at first, but it's actually quite elegant in its simplicity. Imagine you're scanning a news article. You're not painstakingly reading every single word, right?
Am I just trying to get the gist?
Exactly. Your eyes are darting around, picking up on key phrases and words to get the meaning. That's basically what the transformer does.
So it's like giving a computer a superpower for reading comprehension.
Precisely. Instead of getting bogged down by each individual word in a rigid sequence, the transformer figures out how much attention each word deserves in relation to every other word in the sentence. This allows it to capture context and relationships that might have completely flown over the heads of those old RNNs.
Hold on, so if I'm following you, this whole attention thing is what lets the transformer grasp the meaning of a sentence as a whole, as opposed to just a bunch of individual words strung together.
You got it. And it's not even just about understanding each word on its own, but how they all connect and interact with each other. And get this, the way this attention mechanism works is inherently parallelizable FUBL, meaning you can process tons of information at the same time, way more efficient than those clunky RNNs we talked about.
Which is a big deal in the AI world where speed and efficiency are everything.
But it gets even cooler. The transformer doesn't just stop at attention. It takes it up a notch with something called multi-head attention. And this is where things get really wild.
Multi-head attention, it sounds kind of like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah. But it's actually a pretty cool concept.
So what is it exactly?
Well, imagine the transformer is not just reading a sentence once, but it's actually analyzing it multiple times at the same time.
Okay.
Each of these readings focuses on a different aspect of the language.
So it's like multitasking for language.
That's a great way to put it. You might have one head that's really focused on figuring out the main subject of the sentence,
Okay.
while another is laser focused on how the verbs and objects relate. And then another head might be deciphering the overall tone or sentiment. Is it sarcastic, serious, playful?
Wow, so it's really dissecting the text from different angles all at once.
Exactly. Like having a whole team of expert readers, each with their own specialty.
And the paper actually gives some examples of how these different attention heads learn to specialize, right?
It's remarkable, really.
What?
Some heads become masters of grammar, picking out the intricate structures of language, while others excel at understanding the relationships between words, even when they're far apart in the sentence. It's like giving the model this deeper, more nuanced understanding of how language really works.
That's pretty incredible. But let's bring it back down to earth for a second. How does all this incredible complex tech actually show up in our everyday lives?
You might be surprised to learn that you're experiencing the power of the transformer on a daily basis without even realizing it.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This paper truly unlocked a new era of NLP applications that have become seamlessly integrated into our digital lives.
Okay, give me some examples because I'm starting to feel like I'm living in the future but don't even know it.
Okay, think about Google Translate for a moment.
Hmm.
The reason it's become so incredibly accurate and nuanced in recent years is largely thanks to the transformer.
Interesting.
And those chatbots we were talking about earlier, the ones that actually manage to hold a somewhat decent conversation, they've also been massively influenced by the transformer. They're getting better at understanding what you mean and responding in a way that feels more natural, more human-like.
So it's not just about translating languages or having slightly less frustrating conversations with chatbots. It's about computers being able to truly grasp and process human language in a way that was unimaginable before.
Exactly. The transformer has also revolutionized things like those text summarization tools, the ones that take a super long article and condense it into the key points.
Yeah, those are pretty handy.
It's also impacted the predictive text on your phone. How it suggests the next word you might type.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yep, the transformer's fingerprints are all over that.
Wow, the transformer really is like the unsung hero of how we communicate in the digital age. Okay, before we get too carried away with the impact, I have to ask about some of the more technical details that really caught my eye in the paper.
Yeah, what jumped out at you?
Well, for one thing, the paper mentions how this model achieved some seriously impressive scores on English to German and English to French translation tasks, like way better than anything that came before.
Oh, absolutely. Those results were groundbreaking. It wasn't just a minor improvement. It was a monumental leap forward in translation quality.
Yeah.
And the fact that it could be trained much faster than previous models, that was the cherry on top.
And then there's this whole thing about positional encoding. You mentioned earlier that the transformer processes the entire sentence at once. But how does it keep track of the order of the words if it's not reading them one by one? That seems super important for understanding the meaning, right?
You're right on. The money word order is absolutely crucial, and the creators of the transformer knew that. That's where positional encoding comes in. It's their ingenious way of injecting information about the position of each word into the model, even though it's processing everything simultaneously.
So it's like giving each word a little sticky note that says, hey, I'm word number 3 in this sentence.
Exactly. They figured out this elegant way to do it using a clever math trick. It allows the model to understand the relative distances between words, which is key for deciphering things like grammar and syntax.
Okay, that makes sense. But you know what really blew my mind? Those attention visualizations that the researchers included in the paper.
Ah, yes. Those are captivating, aren't they?
It's like getting a glimpse into the mind of the model, seeing how it's connecting words and ideas. It's almost beautiful in a way.
It truly is. And for researchers like me, they're incredibly valuable because they help us understand how these models are actually learning and making decisions. It's like peering into the inner workings of a black box.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the limitations of earlier models to the elegance of the transformer, and its incredible impact on everything from the accuracy of Google Translate to the way we text. But it makes you wonder, where do we go from here? What's next for NLP after something as groundbreaking as the transformer?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's like they've handed us this incredibly powerful tool, and now it's up to us to figure out what we can build with it.
Are we talking like computers that can actually understand language just like we do? Is that even possible?
That's the million-dollar question. The one that keeps researchers like me up at night.
Well,
I mean, what do we mean when we say understand anyway? It's a slippery concept.
yeah, good point.
What we do know is the transformer opened up doors that we didn't even know existed a few years ago. It's like a whole new landscape of possibilities just opened up.
So you're saying NLP has a pretty exciting future ahead of it?
Absolutely dazzling. And it's not just about pushing the technical limits either. It's about really understanding the ripple effects this tech has and how it weaves itself into our lives.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it. As these language models get more sophisticated and eerily good at sounding like us,
Okay.
It's going to be harder and harder to tell the difference between a human voice and a machine-generated one. And that has some pretty big implications for how we think about things like authenticity and trust.
So it's not all sunshine and roses then. There are some challenges we need to be aware of as we dive deeper into this new world.
There always are with any major tech leap, right? But I'm optimistic. I think the key here is to approach these advancements with a healthy dose of curiosity, but also a good amount of careful consideration. We've got to be having these open and honest conversations about the potential benefits, but also the potential pitfalls.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've given us a lot to think about today. This deep dive has been quite a journey. We've gone from decoding the secrets of this revolutionary research paper to pondering the future of how we communicate in a world that's, frankly, getting weirder and more wonderful by the day.
It's an exciting time to be working with language, that's for sure.
It really is. And who knows, maybe someone listening right now will be the one to make the next groundbreaking discovery in NLP. That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious. We'll catch you in the next episode.